Since the Sandbox fans, we just gave you guys our top free agents. We're going to run down the teams that need a successful offseason as we approach free agency in the NFL draft. These teams need to make sure that they make some moves that impact their franchise going forward so that things change for these organizations. I'm going to start off in the AFC East. This was a team that started off as one of the most hot teams in the NFL this year. And, with injuries and just a bunch of other different mishaps, they kind of crumbled towards the back end of the season. Like, they really did. And this is where I have the Miami Dolphins. This is a team I feel like absolutely needs a successful offseason. They started the year so well that everybody just had those expectations kind of out there for them. I thought Mike McDaniels has came in and done a great job with that team. I think Tyreek Hill has been a great fit, and a lot of people probably questioned the level of success he was going to have after Kansas City. But they had a lot of injuries last year. They are having, some changing as far as leadership goes. No Xavier Howard there anymore. A lot of the guys like Teron Armstead that have been there for quite some time. You're starting to see some of like those changes in that locker room. They have some questions. And is Tua, the franchise quarterback going forward? We're paying a guy like Bradley Chubb with the compensation that we gave up to go and get him. Is he going to be enough to be a star pass rusher?
And then you got one of your other best defensive players that you should be taking care of, like we
in
talked
Christian
about last
Wilkins.
episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice that you can bring in a guy like a Jalen Ramsey, but losing Xavier Howard, they're going to have to, address that. I know, they have Holland on the back end. He's been playing really well, and I know that he's a guy that you're really fond of as well. But what are some things that you think Miami needs to address to help have a successful offseason?
I think that we saw some good signs from Van Ginkel this year, but I do want to see them get after the pass rusher better.
Yeah.
Or get after the passer better. I think their pass rush needs to improve a little bit. I also think they have some serious problems with injury. What necessarily they can do about it, but they really have to start considering if there are people that are getting repeatedly injured, you really have to start considering if it's going to be the best to have them long term. I think as far as they go, I really want to see them invest in the tight end position. I think that's a position that Tua will do really well with, but it just seems like it hasn't been a priority to them at all. They're quick hitting with the quick receivers, but who's that safety net for him? I don't know that he has a safety net.
I don't think so either. He throws the ball enough to Tyreek Hill where it seems like he just knows that that's his guy and he can go and get it. And I do understand the tight end for the lack thereof, I should say, because you have a guy like Waddle and Hill who are actually 1A and 1Bs in their respective scenario. My question comes in with running the football, because now you don't have a Raheem Mostert there. Or if you sign him back, you're talking about year 32 after the best year of his life. And I think Achane is going to be a guy that's going to have a prominent role there next year, but I think they still need to split that. I honestly do. Not that Achane couldn't handle the load, because he can, but we just saw what that scheme and how injured that they got through the year, that it was good to just have a plethora of. So maybe they, invest in the draft. Maybe they bring in one of those veteran free agent running backs that we just talked about.
If Eckler's catching 100 passes, that helps out Tua a lot.
You know how much that would open up the top of the field for Tyreek if you had to worry about Austin Eckler being a pass catcher there?
I think that'd be incredible over there. And Miami is a place that just people want to go.
Yeah.
People want to go play in Miami.
I think things on the defense need to change. I don't think... I think they have the personnel. And I know you mentioned about the pass rushes, they're kind of being a lack of there. I actually think that they're pretty solid there, honestly. I know that they had big names in the corner room, but I think that needs to improve, if you want me to be honest. I thought Jalen Phillips was a good prospect that was actually having a decent season before he tore his Achilles.
Yep.
You have Christian Wilkins on the line if you choose to bring him back. Bradley Chubb, that's a really good 1, 2, 3. Van Ginkel, when those guys got banged up, stepped up, and he did play well. He's not a huge name, but he is a guy that they're going to have to make sure that they take care of, because he's a free agent as well. But I think the year of experience for Mike McDaniels was extremely huge, because there's teams that are going to get used to your scheme, and you're going to have to play chess when they're playing checkers. And, just knowing that they don't care about getting the ball to the tight end makes coverage a lot easier on another side. There's no threat there. So I think that's a point that they could address. Not maybe financially that you want to pay like a. I might not go in the Schultz direction if I'm them, but maybe you get somebody in the second or third round through the draft that could be a really good fit there. That's a team that I think needs a successful offseason.
Where I'm going to leave off with Miami, too, is like you mentioned this, and I think it was week 1 of the power rankings this year, but what if you were to tell me that, the same team started 3-0 and looked like they were murdering teams and they fell off? Sustainability is huge for Miami.
Yes.
They can't just start hot and be like, all right, we're there. Like, let's just, let's take the foot off the gas a little bit, just play a little smart. Like, you need to play every game like it's your last game, and that's the game to get in the playoffs. Because it seems like they get to the middle of the season, they just become undisciplined.
Yeah.
So discipline is a huge part of that. Mike McDaniels is a good coach, but there's got to be a time where if it's not him, someone, the defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator, snaps them all back in and just says, listen, guys, we are going to let this fall apart for the 3rd year in a row unless we do this.
Yeah.
Keep them disciplined, keep them focused. I think that's one of the biggest parts.
Absolutely.
Well, team that I want to go with, Steve, not a bad year last year, really middle of the pack, not middle of the pack, but picked it up at the end of the season. They're in a competitive division, but they kind of have a lot of good pieces to do well. Chicago Bears need to have a successful offseason.
Okay, talk about it. What needs to happen?
What needs to happen is either they have to make their decision very, very soon about Fields or Caleb Williams.
Go ahead.
No, you're good.
Do you think that regardless of the decision that they make, they can have the same success next year in either route?
I think they can.
Okay.
I think they can regardless. Now, I know we talked about this in the last episode. I do truly believe Fields is better than he gets credit for, and I think they should stick it out with him because they saw more success last season. Build off of that. Trade back in the draft. So trade with a team like New England and get yourself another. And I get their offensive line hasn't been bad. You can get one of the top tackles. You can get one of those top receivers to go with DJ Moore. Imagine if you have Justin Fields, you traded back, you have more capital, and then you get Malik Neighbors at 3. You get Malik Neighbors at 4 or 5. Or if Marvin Harrison's there, you get him. Then you have him paired with DJ Moore. You got Cole Kmet. You can still use a little bit more help in the running game, but again, that's something you can kind of committee. Keep everybody in defense right there because I think their defense really found something at the end of the season. Give Fields a little bit more help. I think
the
Bears can be dangerous.
We're gonna get detailed and specific on this. You chose your direction. You're Chicago. You're keeping Fields. You have the 1. You have the 9 pick with a top pick in the second round. Multiple picks throughout the rest of the draft. I want you to tell me what you're doing with that 1, what you're doing with that 9, and then sprinkle in some of the free agency adjustments.
You have 3 teams with the top 4 picks that are really picking between, and we talked it, could be 3 quarterbacks. 2 are the best.
Yeah.
2 we think are the best. And I don't think Drake May is that bad. I am with you, though, in thinking Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are ahead of the rest.
Yes.
So I think you find the team that might get the short end of the stick or is so dire that they need this quarterback so bad and they're so dead set on that they're willing to give you the most.
Who is it?
The New England Patriots are going to trade up to 1 to get Caleb Williams in this scenario. I love Jaden Daniels if they stick there, but I think they're nervous that Washington takes a jump over them. I think Arizona takes a jump over them. And then Washington's going to get a quarterback. I think we all can.
You're saying that at 2, Washington's going to get a quarterback.
2, Washington gets a quarterback, and I think the Patriots know. And I think they also know that Arizona, while Kyler's the guy, there's a threat that they can get a quarterback, but there are other teams that also need one bad. They could threaten to jump, and they could have a lot of capital. My ideal scenario is I think the Patriots want to know that they're going to have a quarterback, they're going to have who they want, and if Chicago only trades 2 picks back, that allows the compensation to be less than what it would be for one of the teams taking a bigger leap.
Okay.
So I think they trade with New England, or it could be Washington just saying, hey, we know we want Caleb Williams, we're going to go get Caleb Williams, or we know we want Jaden Daniels, we're going to go get him. I think they make that trade with one of those 2 teams. I'm going to stick with New England. They trade back to 3. They get a receiver at that point. So Caleb and Jaden Daniels are off the board. They get a Marvin Harrison Jr., or if for some reason they're feeling more of a Malik Neighbors, they get a Malik Neighbors, someone on a rookie contract that they pair right next to DJ Moore. You have Fields, you have those 2 receivers, you have Cole Kmet. Your line has been getting better. You trust in Darnell Wright, who you drafted at 10 last year, to hold that up. But who's to say you can't get another great offensive lineman
I
right
was
there
gonna
at
say,
9?
I was gonna say, you don't think that they might go Joe Alt at 3 and then just pick the best available receiver at 9?
They could, but I think if you have the opportunity to say Joe Alt, Marvin Harrison, and your offensive line has already shown improvement from years past, I think you're willing to wait 6 more picks to get a great O-lineman. May not be the number 1 O-lineman in the draft, but you can get a great O-lineman, and you have the best damn receiver to know that Justin Fields has 2 guys that will be open in one-on-one coverage. That's what I would do if I was Chicago.
Okay.
And you got to lock up Jalen Johnson. That's the biggest thing for me on the defensive end. You lock up Jalen Johnson. You already paid 2 linebackers and Trey Edmonds and TJ Edwards. You got your linebacker set. You just traded for Montez Sweat. Lock up Jalen Johnson. You have Jaquan Brisker still. Let's see how it plays out.
I actually do think that there is some tough conversations going on right now about that 1 pick. Because I bet you part of that organization, I bet you that organization understands the pros and cons of moving forward in both directions. And that's a good thing, right? I think it's a scenario where it could be a win-win. I think it's a scenario where it could be a lose-lose. I do think that having a 1 and a 9 pick, if you were to drop the ball on this, knowing how much capital you can really have the next couple of years for your franchise, could be detrimental. I actually think that Chicago isn't going to want to trade with a team that's a top pick, knowing how much more capital they can get. If you want me to give you a wild card, I think the Raiders are a team that could look to trade to 1. Try and just, look, Caleb Williams, that like they could want that. I think Washington is going to stand pat at 2. I can't see them just moving up 1. I just think Chicago would want more. And I just feel like Washington isn't going to move. Like, they're not going to give up 3 first-round picks to move 1 spot. Like, I just don't think that that's kind of worth that price. Think they can move there. I think still picking twice in the top 10 would be huge for the growth of their future. But I don't think it would be the end of the world. I think they stay home at 9 regardless, and they make a selection at 9. Guaranteed.
Well, what pick does Vegas? I agree with that. Again, that is a good play.
I just think they get more. They get
100%.
3 first-round picks, right? You get, let's say it's 7, right?
Yep.
Like they pick at 7, they pick at 9. They get 2 more first-round picks in the future. Now you're playing this game that you've been playing for years now. And it's like, even if you just let Fields play out his contract this year, knowing that you have the franchise tag as a potential leverage scenario, I just feel like Fields is I don't think Caleb Williams is going to come in and be a top 10. Like if you're that confident that you're not even going to do draft evaluations on your health because there's 32 teams, only one's going to take you, not all 32 teams need. Like, I just don't agree with the approach. And, like, he doesn't come to me, like, as somebody that's, like, a complete piece of shit either. I just feel like the way that his camp is handling things is because they know that he's already the 1 solidified pick. And they're just trying to see what else they can get.
Yeah.
I think that's honestly it. But with Chicago, I think that they can have success both. I think they take Fields. They draft a receiver at 9. Wherever they move from that 1, I think will determine what they do with that other selection. I don't think that they're in dire need for a top-tier wide receiver. They could wait till round 2 or 3 and get a really good receiver still if they want to address the defensive side of the ball, go offensive line, and just get whatever the best available scenario is. Another team I feel like is in a must-have offseason scenario. They need a successful offseason. The Atlanta Falcons, another name in that quarterback conversation. Figured it was going to be a team on your list, so we can really collaborate on what we think would be the best case forward with this. The obvious addressment needs to be a quarterback, right? They need a quarterback that they can win playoff games with because it's very realistic that next year they can win 10 games. And that's with the belief that the new coach comes in and everything stays, on the same path that they're at, right? The defense continues to play well. They have the pieces there in the offense. And I don't think it's all the quarterback play with the offensive problems in Atlanta. And I want to put that out there. But I think that giving Bijan the opportunities that he's going to have this year is only going to make them better. I think we haven't seen the best of London. We got flashes of what Pitts could really look like. But what type of quarterback is going to go there is a huge part in all of this. And I know everyone's like, Fields. I don't think that he would be the best fit there. I actually think like a pocket guy would be the best fit there because you have someone that can sit back, that can actually sling it around. And you're not going to take away from the ability of a Bijan to take over a game because your quarterback's rushing the ball, taking away like another 3 or 4 rushes. You're letting him get those 20 carries, setting up the play action that'll help Pitts, and so on and so forth. But I think they need to continue addressing the defensive side of the ball. They need to play 4 quarters of football games. They need to not get out coached, and they need to make some damage in their division. They need to go 500 or above in their division for them to win. I'd love for you to get a little bit more into the personnel.
You spoke really well on something that they can't be out coached.
Yeah.
And I think Raheem Morris is very different than Arthur Smith in terms of how they like to play football. Arthur Smith's very offensive-minded, whereas Raheem Morris is going to be more defensive-minded. And we saw how strong that defense was.
Yeah.
You got Jesse Bates. I think Jesse Bates has been absolutely incredible. You got A.J. Terrell at corner. If you find another corner that you can draft, maybe a lower, I don't want to say lower level, but if you don't get a premier one in free agency, but you have him on the other side of A.J. Terrell with Jesse Bates right up there in the middle, I think that secondary looks good.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them get a linebacker. I think a really good run stuff, 150 tackle linebacker would be huge for them. Someone to make sure that they're their smart guy, that Raheem Morris will do really well coaching because he was a linebackers coach.
He will.
Someone that can absolutely, like a Jordan Brooks.
Yeah.
If he stays healthy, I think that'd be a really good fit. He can just
sure.
fly all over the field. He can call things out because Jordan Brooks is also a very smart football player. So if you get a guy like that, I think the middle linebacker position is going to be huge for them. On the offensive end, it's obvious that it's going to be quarterback. If we're talking pocket passer, Kirk's your guy in free agency. Kirk is your guy.
You think that they should drop the bag on him? Do you think that's the direction they should go?
I don't know that it's the bag, and Fields would be great, but again, I prefer he stays in Chicago. You can look at a guy like Russ. I'm sure the Patriots are willing to trade Mac Jones, but I don't think that's going to get you where you need to be.
No,
even though he is
definitely
more
not.
of a pocket guy, and that it does give him more talent. I think Kirk's the best guy that I can see in free agency right now.
Do you think that they should make a splash in the draft?
I mean, they could. Drake May could work out there. If there was a team that I think Drake May would fit really well, if we're talking like pocket passing, I think that
Do you agree that a pocket passer should be their direction?
I do, and they have a lot of good weapons. They have a good run game. They have a good receiver. They have a good tight end. They have a damn good offensive line that can keep him protected.
Yeah.
So if they can get a guy that's not, panicking and immediately running out of the pocket, like we saw Heineke played better than Desmond Ridder in multiple games this year.
Yeah.
Heineke's more of that pocket guy, whereas Ridder was really moving around a lot. If they get a smart guy, a veteran that can sit in there, or if they get a guy that's, played 4 years in college where he knows how to call things out on the offensive line, I think you're exactly right. I think pocket passer will do well. I don't think you stop with a quarterback.
Okay.
You get one more guy to help out Drake London.
I think they need to address
receiver.
wide. Yes, absolutely.
You need another wide
I
receiver
agree.
because London's good. I don't know that he's a solo one.
No.
I think you got to get a guy in there. We talked about Marquise Brown. I feel like he could be a good fit. You can look at other teams that are trying to trade players too.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a world in which Calvin Ridley goes back to Atlanta, but I think you need a guy that has a similar mold to him too.
Do you feel like the Panthers are in any scenario to be on top of that division next year?
I wanted to put them in here as a team that needs a successful offseason, but realistically, they don't.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's expecting them to be good for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
I think they got to wait a little bit. They're going to go through their struggles. They need to try and play tough football. But I don't think there's anything crazy that they can do this offseason other than I think you should get a little bit more wide receivers to help out Bryce Young just to see what he really is.
You feel like the coaching change is going to make a drastic difference there?
I don't know. We'll see. I feel like I've said that every year with the Panthers, and it never does. Matt Rule didn't work out. I actually don't think this was Frank Reich's fault.
Yeah.
I think it was owner's fault.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't know what to think of the Panthers. I just don't think they're in a situation where this is their offseason to make or break. Because realistically, I think they're going to struggle for 2-3 years at least anyway.
I mean, I hope that Bryce Young is able to find a switch. And, I feel like there were some positive things there. Like, Adam Thielen had a career resurgence there, last year.
But how long can he do that?
Well, but my point on that wasn't for Adam Thielen. It was that Bryce Young can produce that. So maybe if it was a guy that can break away a little bit more or had a little bit more of that speed, some of those long plays to Adam Thielen maybe could extend to touchdowns.
Yep.
That, a couple, 3 or 4 touchdowns changes the win column for that team for the entire season. I think reestablishing the ground game is a huge part of having some offensive success. I don't think that personnel-wise that they're the worst defensive team in the league.
They're not, especially when you have guys coming back healthy.
Yeah.
Chin, Horn, Burns, Derek Brown.
Yeah.
You have these guys.
Offensive line, they definitely need to get better. Being able to keep Bryce Young up for longer than 2 seconds would absolutely help keep them in the proper direction going forward. But I think that there's a lot of questions in Tampa. We talked about the salary cap deficiency for the New Orleans Saints. It seems like it's the Falcons' opportunity to kind of lose at this point. And for the Panthers, their opportunity to gain because nobody expects shit from them, honestly.
They could Tampa us.
Yeah.
Like what Tampa did last year. I did not think, but then again, it's all Baker played well and they had kind of pieces around it. A team that we've touched upon in our last episode, which you got to go check out. You really got to go check out the best free agents. But at the end of the day, Arizona is a team that I think needs to have a successful offseason. Again, it's not to make the playoffs. It's not to win the Super Bowl. It's to take a positive step forward. Start taking those baby steps forward. Offseason is how you do it. Through the draft is how you do it. You got a good pick at 4.
Yeah.
Find out what you want to do there.
I would love to know how many times the Arizona Cardinals actually picked in the top 10 because I bet you it's up there with some
record breaking. They have historically the worst record in NFL history.
Yeah.
I think they need it was something ridiculous. They need 60, 70 consecutive wins to go above 500.
Yeah. It's
nuts.
Crazy. Not going to happen.
No, of course not.
I did think that there were some teams that kind of need a more prominent offseason, if you want me to be honest. And I'm going to jump to the AFC North.
Can I guess?
No, because I'm still not sold on which one it is. And I kind of wanted your help with trying to figure. I think that both of these teams do need, but which one is more important for them to continue to build this offseason, the Bengals or the Steelers?
Those are the two. I have Bengals on this list.
Okay, so let's talk about the Bengals because this is a team that paid their quarterback. Jamar Chase is expiring on a rookie contract. They just tagged T. Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't been able to continue that defensive identity that they had when they made a Super Bowl run. Not the worst defensive team. Not a lot of stars. I felt like they felt the losses in the back end, and I know that we're going to reflect on that a little bit more. We did a little bit in the past episode. But are the Bengals really a team in one offseason that can get back to the Super Bowl?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Because they have the talent to do it. They just need a little bit more. Get a better tight end. Have someone play the tight end role. You have 2 stud receivers. You have Jordan Battle coming back at the safety position, who I think is going to be pivotal to help backfill what you lost in Jesse Bates and Von Bell. He has a year under his belt. He's going to go out there. He's going to play better this year. And let's build that defense a little more. You got Trey Hendrickson had another great season. Sam Hubbard had a good year. Maybe get another guy to stuff the middle. You got Orlando Brown at the tackle. I think your offense is as good as it's going to get minus a tight end.
Yeah.
I think they still have Mixon. So you have a good team. Am I right? They still got the Mixon.
Yes,
they still got Mixon.
Yes.
So you have a good offense. The defense has some good pieces on it. Solidify it. Get yourself another corner. Get yourself an interior defensive lineman. And maybe look at some of the linebackers that have been hanging around for a little while. But I think they have, if with a couple of good moves, a good draft, a couple good offseason moves, they can make the Super Bowl and they could win the Super Bowl.
If the Bengals this year finish third in their division with a 9-8 record, does any sort of that, any part of that come back to Zach Taylor and coaching?
I think Zach Taylor is probably one of the weaker portions of the Bengals, if I'm being honest.
Really?
I think he's super middle of the pack coach. I think if they had a better coach, a couple steps up, like if they have a bad season, they should go throw the fucking bag at Mike Vrabel and go on a dynasty level run.
I honestly feel like Vrabel could be great there, but I honestly think that Zach Taylor has continued to impress me as the Bengals coach, and I feel like a large part of that comes down to what we saw after Burrow got hurt and was out for the year. Like the fact that Browning was able to go in there and put up 30 points for 2 or 3 straight games with the amount of yards that they were able to. And I know that there's a lot of woes on the defensive side of the ball there, but the reason why I'm going to agree with you that the Bengals need to have a more successful offseason than the Steelers is because that you have that quarterback.
You have that dude.
The Steelers don't have that. There's a lot more questions around the Steelers, but all the more it's just like, okay, is Joe Burrow in that Mahomes conversation, or is it like that Dak Prescott conversation? I think he's good enough to be in the Mahomes conversation. I mean, he's kind of in a conversation of his own, if you want me to be honest, with the success he's kind of had in the league so far. But Joe Burrow has a lot of years left to play in this league. If he's not able to do it with the core that they have now, it might not get much better going forward, especially for the way that the Bengals are as like a franchise too.
Yep.
You know? So those are my opinions with that. They have to get better on the defensive side of the ball. But this is a team that also needs to win more than 10 games. They can't just be third in their division. They need to compete with the Ravens. The Ravens have a lot to defend in that division next year.
Like that's and you bring up a great point when you talk specifically about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has the opportunity to change a game by himself at any given time.
Yeah.
And if you have that guy, you have to go get that Super Bowl now.
Yeah.
You've been so close so many times, and they're in one of those unique positions that no other team really is ever in. And they play the Chiefs. They more often than not get the better of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
No other team can say that except for Cincinnati. They got to the Super Bowl. They got back to that game. They have played so well, especially when it comes down to playoffs and it comes down to one player being better than everyone else. Joe Burrow shows he's like the best damn guy there is. Mahomes is obviously on that other level. Like he's that step above.
Do you think that Joe Burrow in the next 3 years is in a better scenario to potentially win a Super Bowl than Josh Allen?
That's a damn good question.
I think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think a lot of that comes down to your thoughts on McDermott compared to Zach Taylor.
I was just gonna say where it's crazy is like, I know I spoke that I don't think Zach Taylor is a top 15, top 10 coach in the league. I know McDermott's worse than him. I damn well know. And tell me that it is not perfect. Well, okay, don't take this the wrong way. If the Giants have a tough season and they have to let go of Brian Daboll, would him going back to Buffalo to be Josh Allen's coach not be perfect for Buffalo?
I mean, yeah, it would, and I wouldn't take that offensively. I mean, he's in a prove-it year. I mean, it's great that he was coach of the year, but following it up with a shit season like this, that doesn't really mean anything. And there are guys like, I think Belichick has Giants connections, and I feel like that could be a name rumored next year if he still has interest in coaching. Not that I would want that. I hope that the Giants come in and have 10 wins this year and Daboll's the guy, but I don't think that that's going to be the case. Too many questions around them. I would love Vrabel. Don't think that's going to be the case. I think that Daboll will always have those ties to Buffalo and to Josh Allen specifically. I honestly feel like from what we've seen from Josh Allen, not that we haven't seen it from Burrow, but I do feel like he's in a better situation to potentially win the Super Bowl than Burrow.
I just don't know. I feel like where Buffalo's chance to win was kind of like 3 years ago, they're starting to come out of that, whereas the Bengals, their chance, like they could have won 3 years ago, but realistically, they would have won 2 years ago, but Jamar Chase comes in, that's his rookie year, and he's just getting to get better and better. Like, you have T. Higgins still for one more year. You got to take your shot now. I think that even after this, if they don't re-sign T. Higgins, they're going to have a lot of money that they can start paying other pieces to really build that up more, and I think that's going to set them up to be better in the future. So I think Cincinnati's going to have a better chance.
Interesting. We'll have to see what happens. I have one more here.
I'm mad as Kev right now.
I have one more here on my list, and I actually think that both of these teams are in a much more dire scenario than both the Bengals and the Steelers, the teams that we had just kind of talked about there. The Chargers and the Raiders.
Yep.
I think, and here's my reasoning for both. The Chargers with Harbaugh have expectations. With Staley, they didn't have expectations the past couple years. Kansas City dominating that division for so long. Denver being the state of the franchise that they are right now. The Chargers have the biggest opportunity to come into next year and surprise and make an impact in that division. I think that they have the opportunity to do so. I actually think that they're going to win that division next year. I think it's going to be really tough. A three-peat is a hefty task. And I just feel like things went close to perfect for Kansas City in the second half of the season, where around week 10, their Super Bowl odds were probably like really high. They were probably like 6 or 7 in the league, honestly. With the Raiders, the reason why I don't think it's as crazy as the Chargers is because the Raiders, even if they have a good offseason this year, I feel like that's not something that they're growing for years to come. And it's not because that they can't. It's just because that we haven't seen that. And I have faith that Antonio Pierce can do a good job. I think Max Crosby is a foundational player. But the toughest question in the quarterback is answered. And I know the Raiders could solve a lot of their problems right now with the Williams if he was to go in with the Devontae Adams and play and a Mayer and having a defense like that. But I just feel like there's a lot of obstacles to get to that. If Pierce doesn't have a good year this year, I could see the Raiders going in another direction right away. Harbaugh is there for years to come. This next year, this offseason right now is so huge for the future of the LA Chargers.
Unless it's super drastic and it's very clear, I just don't think teams jumping from coach super quickly is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Like with McDaniels, they even gave him another year and they knew he was terrible.
Yeah.
Whereas Antonio Pierce, no one has got, since they've been in Vegas, right? And I know it's not a long period of time. Even back in the most recent years of Oakland, nobody has gotten what Antonio Pierce has gotten out of their players.
I agree.
Like, he gets them fired up, wanting to play football. That defense was top level at the end of the season. Jack Jones decided he was good at football again and didn't want to start bringing guns into airports. Like, this dude had another resurgence on a new team, and we already know how good he was.
Yeah.
But he had like back-to-back pick sixes in games. One of them was sick. It's a one-hander that he took back to the house. It was crazy. I just think that Antonio Pierce does a better job of getting the most out of his players than anybody we've seen in Vegas or Oakland in recent history. Those guys, they want to play for him. Like, we were talking about how miserable they were with McDaniels there. Pierce goes in, they play the best I've seen them play. Yeah. Like, it really is incredible. I just think it'd be a huge mistake to move on from him unless it's crystal clear that the only issue that they have is Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case right now.
Do you have a team that you think needs a more successful offseason than the Chargers and the Raiders? And do you think the Raiders need a more successful offseason than the Chargers?
I do think the Chargers need the more successful season just because, like, you actually said it perfectly. It's expectations.
Yeah.
Like, the expectations are there. Their talent is kind of there. I mean, when are we going to start looking into their medical team and be like, you guys are doing something fucking wrong?
Yeah.
Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert, Joey Bosa's never healthy. Like, Mike Williams is always hurt. You guys got to figure something out because you're losing years of Justin Herbert's prime right now. They're losing it. And I think Harbaugh's going to get them all into shape. I think he's going to whip them up into shape. He's going to get the LA mentality out of their mind. And I really do think that he's going to get the most out of these guys. I think he brings a level of wanting to win and expecting to win that players, I think, will benefit from greatly.
Do you think that if J.J. McCarthy falls to the second round that they could potentially draft him even with Justin Herbert there? I feel like that's a possibility.
It is a possibility. I don't know that they will because I personally think Jim Harbaugh wants to see J.J. McCarthy have a shot at a starting role, and as long as Herbert's there, he's not.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have a team that you think that needs a more successful offseason than some of those teams that I just listed?
Not more than those guys, but everybody knows one of my favorite teams, the Detroit Lions. They can't get complacent.
Yeah.
They can't just sit there and say, hey, we made it to the NFC Championship. We're good. Let's just try and do better next year. They can't do that.
What's an aggressive approach to the offseason?
They must solidify the cornerback position. They need a better corner. They tried with Okuda. They need a lockdown corner. Somebody that because if you have a lockdown corner, that allows Brian Branch to do his thing and go all over the field.
Do you think that they pick up the phone and call Denver and see what the hell is good with PS2?
Oh, that would be dude, tell me that's not like the most.
You guys just saw Twan had an orgasm on it.
So happy, dude. That would make me so happy. Oh, there's no way. There's just no way.
Do you think that they could pick up the phone and do that? I honestly feel like they could ship their one for him.
You think that? I would ship the one for PS2 immediately. PS2's worth more than just a one, by the way. Especially for a team that has a chance. If Denver would do that, do it all day. I just think in Denver's scenario, I think Sean Payton and the ownership are going to be such fucking sticklers that they won't let it happen.
I think Denver's just like in such a bad scenario. They need to just wipe it clean, like as clean as freaking possible, and just let Sean Payton draft his guys. Like I honestly think that they just need 2 years to just like suck and just go through that.
If that's the place they got to be in, then I mean PS2 would be so good there.
Would there be a better fit in the NFL?
For me, no. Like, absolutely not for me. Like, I'm a big PS2 fan. I'm a big Lions fan. That would be unbelievable. I just think it's
I think you need to get the jersey and manifest it. You need to get a custom and just...
We did have that deal. I think it was if Will Anderson somehow fell to 6 to the Lions. Me and my brother were getting jerseys.
Yeah. Crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I think Detroit, they can't get complacent. I think they need to lock down the corner. I would like to see another pass rusher. At the end of the day, I think that the linebacker position is great. I think Jack Campbell's going to be great for them. I think they're good at safety.
Is Jameson Williams enough on the offensive side of the ball?
He's a different kind. I think he's gotten better as he's played more games. I would like to see one more receiver, though.
Okay.
I don't want it to be just Amon-Ra, Josh Reynolds, Jameson Williams. I want one more guy in there. And I don't think Donovan Peoples-Jones is that guy.
No, definitely not. Look, this is a really, really, really random name. But if Seattle goes in a different direction because of the development of JSN and where they got him, and they invest in Metcalf, lock it with Amon-Ra in Detroit, would be crazy. And this is all speculation, just tossing a name. But in Seattle, if there's anybody that would go in that offense, it would be him.
I think so, too, because I think he provides the least cap hit. Well, less than DK Metcalf. And JSN's just younger.
Yes.
That would be incredible. Because then you have 2 guys that can play on the inside. You have Jameson Williams to put on the outside. The pair with Laporta, I think that would be incredible. That actually, helps. I know he's not the biggest guy. That almost makes them more of a hard-nosed football team, though.
Yeah. No, it definitely does. Twan's getting all excited with with the all-season talk. But, guys, let us know some fits. Let us know some teams that you think need to have a more successful offseason than some of the names we just ran through. And feel free to, share your thoughts. But you guys know the deal. We're going to get you guys the sophomore slumps of success real soon. Peace, love, 5 stars, nothing less.